L'chaim, l'chaim, and welcome to our mini Farbrengen series. L'chaim. We are now in the days between Chof Cheshvan, which was last Shabbos, and the coming Shabbos, Shabbos Parshas Chayei, which is the Kinus Hashluchim. And Shabbos Chof Cheshvan, Minei Misborchen Kula Yomin, is the day that blesses all the days of this week. And we're preparing, all of us, for the Kinus Hashluchim Ho'ilami, for the tremendous Kinus which should take place by Ezras Hashem, starting this coming Shabbos. And so, really as a hachana, as a preparation for the Kinus, we have the day of Chof Cheshvan, when Mazole Gover of the Rebbe Rashab, and we have the beginning of the Kinus on Shabbos, as is well known. The Rebbe began the Kinus by the Farbrengen, 130 in 770. By the Farbrengen, that's when the real Kinus began. So let's have a look at getting ready for the Kinus by Farbrengen about Chof Cheshvan. The Rebbe Rashab wrote a kuntres called Kuntres Eitz HaChaim. It was first printed in 1896, a number of years after the Yeshiva of Temchei Tmimim was in fact created. And the reason why the Rebbe Rashab wrote that particular kuntres was because the Yeshiva was being successful. A number of Bachurim heard about the brilliance of the lecturers, of the Ramim, the Magidei Shurim, Mashpiim, and the high level of Limud HaNigla. And they came. But they really didn't get the idea of Limud HaChassidus and Avodah. And consequently, the Rebbe Rashab wrote for them this kuntres. In 1946, the Frierdiker Rebbe reprinted the kuntres in America. And of course, that was the generation of America is nit anders. America could have been very different. And again, the Frierdiker Rebbe printed that kuntres. In 1991, Chof Cheshvan, the Rebbe gave that kuntres to every single man, woman, and child. If we actually have a look at those three occasions, they are three challenges in the Jewish world. The Rebbe Rashab said himself that the reason he made the Yeshiva Temchei Tmimim was because of the onslaught then of the Maskilim, the move from the shtetl to the town, all sorts of revolutions that were going on in the world. And so the Rebbe had to create Chayole based of it, Neiris Lahoyer. And when they weren't getting the exact reason for Temchei Tmimim's establishment, he wrote the Kuntres Eitz HaChaim. In 1946, when it was the beginning of the modern America, the new world, the free world, assimilation, it was necessary again to give that message over. And then, 1991, the internet age, social media, the time that we're going into just before the coming of Mashiach, that message needed to be given over again. So the message is really eternal. And it behooves us to think succinctly, what is the message of the Kuntres Eitz HaChaim? To Farbrengen about it. And most importantly, since the Rebbe gave it to every single man, woman, and child, it means that although originally it was written for Tmimim in Lubavitch, nevertheless, today, by extension, that goes to every single chassid, anybody who's connected with a Beis Chabad, and each one of us. So, l'chaim, let's have a look at the message of Kuntres Eitz HaChaim, and let's see if we can internalize that message. L'chaim. Kuntres Eitz HaChaim talks about the Eitz HaChaim and the Eitz HaDas Tov V'Ra. What are these two trees? The Rebbe Rashab quotes a fascinating passage from the Zohar. The Zohar says that Adam Arishon, his chait was that he wanted to connect just with the Eitz Hadas Tovara, without the Eitz HaChaim. In fact, one of the Mefarshim of the Zohar says that his chet, his sin was that he didn't first eat from the Eitz HaChaim and then eat the Eitz Hadas. Or at least he should have eaten them both together. But he was just focused on the Eitz Hadas Tovara. And in the Kuntres, the Rebbe Rashab explains at length the concept of Yichuda Ilah and Yichuda Tata. Keil Deus Hashem. God is a God of knowledges. You can see the perspective from above or the perspective from below. In Yichuda Ilah Shema Yisrael, the perspective is that everything is Elikus. Hashem creates the world. We see a world. The world is just a mere manifestation of divine creative energy. But in essence, Einoid Mulvadoi. That's Yichuda Ilah. That's called the Eitz HaChaim. Yichuda Tata, Suda Welt, there is a world. And within this world, which is a yesh, we need to be mispoining, to think of the source of where the world came from, and there needs to be a bitul hayesh. That's Yichuda Tata. The Rebbe Rashab explains, there's a danger in Yichuda Tata alone. The danger is in that because there's a feeling of yeshus, of egocentricity, it can be tainted with the ego itself. And other things can get involved. A person can get sometimes lost within themselves. And so always, together with the Eitz Hadas, Tovara, there needs to be a tinge of the Eitz HaChaim. There needs to be the level of Yichuda Ilah. Even if we're not there, we need to have that together with the Eitz Hadas. Practically, that means that there needs to be Ava V'yira, love of Hashem, fear of Hashem, awe of Hashem, generated by his Boinanus, by Chabad, generated by Limud Chassidus. The Eitz HaChaim is Chassidus itself. The Alter Rebbe in Igeres HaKodesh Simcha Vav explains that Nister of Torah is called the Eitz HaChaim, and Nigla is called the Eitz Hadas. That doesn't mean that Nigla has Ra in itself. It means that as Torah descends into the Oilamas Habiyah, the Oilamas of Bria Yitzir Asi, in other words, into independent existence, it can not be learned for its correct reasons. If you learn Torah Lishma, which is to feel the noise in our Torah, the giver of the Torah, it's a Sam HaChaim, it's an elixir of life. But if Torah is not learned for the correct reasons, it can become a Sam HaMaves, a poison. A person can sometimes be infiltrated by feelings of gaiva, of haughtiness, of arrogance. A person can learn and use Torah in a completely inappropriate way. And so therefore, then, in 1896, in 1946, and in 1991, that message of the Eitz HaChaim remained the same. In 1896, it was that the Yeshiva Bachrim had to learn 8 hours of Nigla a day, but 4 hours of Chassidus, 2 in the morning and 2 at night. And although the majority of the learning was in Nigla, as the Alter Rebbe explains, because now in our situation we need to be Mevara Birurim, we need to extract all the holy sparks which are in the world. We need to elevate the Helam V'Hester, the concealment of the world. And that's done by Torah's engagement within the world, which is the Limud HaNigla. But that Eitz Hadas needs to be permeated with the Eitz HaChaim, with the Limud HaChassidus. Same in 1946. America, the free world. It needed the injection of the Eitz HaChaim. And the Rebbe is saying, Chof Cheshvan, 1991, Tafshin and Aleph, that exactly today, each one of us, in order that Bosor Shovar, in order that we should take flesh and break it, not in the terms of denying it, but elevating it, as Chassidus explained, it's through Rashab. It's through the Kuntres Eitz HaChaim of the Rebbe Rashab. The Pashtus, that means, quite simply, that means that as we approach the Kinus Hashluchim, which the Kinus is a time that the Rebbe demanded of every single individual that they do their shlichus. The Har Sinai Oshan Kuloi. Har Sinai was full of Oshan, Ayin Shinun, Olam Shana, Nefesh, space, time, soul, the coordinates of every single chassid being a specific and unique soul in a particular time, in a particular place, with individual soul powers. The shaliach, the chassid, the man, woman, and child has to use all their soul powers as an individual, and yet at the same time be completely permeated with the Meshaleach, the one that's sending them. The whole message of Chaye Sorah, as the Rebbe explains in the Sikh of Chaye Sorah Tafshin Nun, was the idea that Eliezer said, Eved Avram Anochi. His whole Metzius was that of the Minui of Avram Avinu. And at the same time, the Shliach has to use the Eser Koichas HaNefesh. Shliach plus Yud is Mashiach in order to fulfill that Shlichus. So this week is an interesting bridge. It's a bridge between Chof Cheshvan and the Kinus. And the message is that as we prepare for the Kinus, we need to be infused with the Eitz HaChaim. We need to be infused with Limud Teirosai of the Meshaleach, learning the Rebbe's Torah, Chassidus, Mamorim, Rishimus, Igros Kodesh, connecting with the Ilona de Chaya, connecting with the tree of life, the Eitz HaChaim. Because then we have the minui, we have the appointment, that the appointment, B'koyach HaTorah, is in such a way that we have complete bittul to the Meshaleach, at the same time operating through each one of our individual soul powers. And that's a true shliach. A person who is an individual, is a shliach, goes out there, uses all their rotzein, tainug, moichin, midois, machshava dibur u'maisa, the whole lot. But kulon shavin latova, all of it directed towards Chaye Sorah, fulfilling the rotzein of the Meshaleach of the Rebbe. B'hashgacha pratis, by divine providence, we lost on Shabbos Chof Cheshvan a dugma chaya of exactly this point. The chief rabbi, Jonathan Sachs, Zichrona Livracha, halach le'olamai. Atomim, he learned in Temchei Tmimim Mikvah Chabad, but his towering achievement, apart from all his books and his honors, v'chulu v'chulu, his towering achievement was chassid, was shliach. When the Rebbe told him to put aside all his ambitions of becoming a barrister, an economist, a professor, become a rabbi and give sermons, hat gefolgt. He listened. There was a bittul, an inner bittul to the Meshaleach. And then he used everything he had, kefi yad Hashem hatova olav, as Hashem granted him unusual and unique talent and magnificent qualities and capabilities. He used all of that in conveying the Eitz HaChaim, the Meshaleach, Teres HaChassidus in a beautiful way, and in a way which was packaged and palatable for the people of this generation and the thousands upon thousands of people who drank thirstily from his words. He's an inspiration for each one of us, that we too should become true Chassidim, we too should become true Shluchim of the Rebbe. On the one hand, using out each one of our individual capabilities, looking where we can use our God-given energies and qualities in fulfilling the shlichus, and at the same time gathering together in a Kinus and being completely dissolved and enveloped in the single rotzain of the Meshaleach, which was L'hachin atzmai, mekoime ve'iroi, l'kabolas pnei Mashiach tzidkenu. And the Rebbe said, together with that, with the limud of Likutei Torah and Torah and Likutei Torah, ad shir hashirim, which is that everything we do should be permeated with the Eitz HaChayim of the Rebbe Rashab, the Torah of the Rabbeim, the Ilona, the Chaya, the tree of life. L'chaim, Hashem should help us all, that with the koyach of Chof Cheshvan, that all of us should fulfill our individual mission in life in our unique coordinates. We should take a life example from a Gadol B'Yisrael, a great Yid who passed away this week, last Shabbos, great in the sense that he taka did that. He took all his soul powers and used them in the fulfillment of his unique shlichus which the Rebbe gave him. Kein ti'alon l'chaim b'vracha. The Eibusher should give us that we too should fulfill our shlichus. B'chesed u'barachmim, gesundheit and freiligkeit. And the Mitz Hashem, even before this Shabbos, we should already be zocher to be in the Beis HaMikdash together with our Rebbe and together with all his Chassidim and Tmimim. Takef u'miyad mamish l'chaim l'vracha.